Something monumental just shifted behind the heavy iron gates of Buckingham Palace, and almost nobody in the mainstream media noticed the exact moment the British crown practically changed hands without a single official ceremony being planned. If you thought King Charles was the one calling the ultimate shots right now, you are about to see a completely different side of the royal hierarchy that the palace public relations machine has been desperately trying to keep under wraps. According to recent reports, Prince William has quietly, systematically, and absolutely taken total control of the royal family's daily operations, and the reason why is going to leave you completely speechless. We have to rewind just a few months to understand the sheer magnitude of this power transition, because what started as a temporary measure has rapidly transformed into a permanent new world order for the Windsors. You see, when King Charles initially stepped back from his rigorous public schedule to focus on his health treatments, the official narrative fed to the public was that William would simply take on a few extra duties, smile for the cameras, and keep his father's seat warm. But sources claim that behind closed doors, William realized the monarchy was teetering on the edge of a massive operational crisis, and he decided he could no longer play the passive waiting game of an heir. He didn't just step up to cut ribbons, he essentially staged a soft, highly calculated takeover of the family firm, acting much more like a ruthless corporate CEO than a traditional prince in waiting. The stakes here are absolutely astronomical because the survival of this thousand-year-old institution currently rests entirely on his shoulders, and if he makes one wrong move in today's hypersensitive media climate, the public's favor could vanish overnight. Let's look at the first major clue that gave this massive secret away, which was a subtle but undeniable shift in how the royal calendar was suddenly being managed. Usually, the ruling monarch dictates the overarching schedule and priorities, but insiders suggest that William's office at Kensington Palace has essentially become the ultimate clearinghouse for every single royal appearance, effectively overriding the traditional chain of command. It is alleged that William looked at the chaotic, sprawling nature of the extended family and decided that the long-talked-about slimmed-down monarchy was no longer just his father's philosophical theory, but an immediate, non-negotiable operational necessity. Now, you might be wondering how King Charles reacted to his eldest son essentially usurping his daily authority, and this is where the story gets incredibly fascinating. According to palace whispers, Charles didn't fight it at all. In fact, he might have secretly welcomed the relief. Charles has always been viewed as a transitional monarch, a necessary bridge between the incredibly long historic reign of his mother and the highly modernized era of his son. But nobody expected that bridge to be crossed this quickly or this quietly. Just think about it for a second. We are witnessing a king who waited over 70 years for the throne, effectively handing over the daily operational reins in record time, simply because the modern world moves way too fast for old traditions. William fundamentally understands the digital age. He understands the harsh optics of a bloated royal payroll during tough economic times, and he knows exactly how to play the media game. Which brings us to the most controversial move he has allegedly made so far. While we cannot officially confirm the exact private conversations, multiple sources have heavily hinted that William has instituted a strict, unbreakable zero-tolerance policy for royal drama. If you aren't actively contributing positive public relations to the crown, you are completely out of the inner circle, period. This ruthless efficiency is honestly a massive breath of fresh air, in my personal opinion. For years, we all watched the royal family get bogged down in endless scandals, petty rivalries, and catastrophic PR disasters that made them look more like a desperate reality television cast than respected heads of state. But William is finally cutting the fat, and frankly, it is about time somebody had the courage to tell the extended royals that the free ride is officially over. You have to laugh a little bit at the poor traditional courtiers who are probably clutching their pearls every time William demands a data-driven spreadsheet instead of a formal painted portrait. Of course, this absolute control extends far beyond just public appearances. It reaches directly into the family's incredible wealth, specifically regarding the Duchy of Cornwall. When William inherited the duchy, he didn't just passively sit back and collect the massive checks. He completely revamped its management structure, signaling to everyone that he is a hands-on, micromanaging operator. But this swift reorganization leads to a massive question that nobody in the British press is talking about yet. What happens when William's strict, uncompromising vision clashes with the inevitable, unpredictable events that always hit the royal family? We have seen how overly tight control can sometimes backfire spectacularly, creating an environment where people feel stifled and eventually rebel. Yet William seems more than willing to take that massive risk, largely because he's leaning heavily on his wife, Catherine, who remains the absolute, undisputed star of the royal family. In fact, you could easily argue that William's current unprecedented power is heavily dependent on Catherine's overwhelming global popularity. They operate as a brilliant package deal, a united, flawless front that essentially shields the monarchy from its harshest and most vocal critics. When Kate steps out, the entire world stops and stares, and William knows exactly how to utilize that immense star power to distract the media from any underlying structural issues within the palace walls. It is a brilliant, albeit slightly transparent strategy that works flawlessly every single time. But the real genius of William's current reign-in all but name is exactly how he handles the rogue elements and estranged members of the family. He absolutely refuses to engage. The old days of the never complain, never explain motto were supposed to be over, but William has essentially weaponized pure, deafening silence. When controversies bubble up from across the Atlantic, or when minor royals try to desperately grab headlines, William's response is an icy, impenetrable wall of business as usual. It drives the tabloid journalists completely crazy because they have absolutely nothing to latch onto, but it completely suffocates the drama before it can even breathe. It is literally a masterclass in passive dominance, and it's fascinating to watch unfold. Now, let me add a little more personal perspective here, because watching this silent transition of power is like watching a highly choreographed high-stakes game of chess where only one player realizes the game is already started. I genuinely believe William is doing the absolute only thing he can to save the monarchy from fading into complete irrelevance.
Is he acting a bit like a control freak? Probably, yes. But when your family's entire existence and financial survival rely entirely on public approval, you simply cannot afford to let everyone just do whatever they want. You need a strict director, and William has firmly placed himself in the director's chair without asking for permission. However, the absolute most shocking part of this entire unprecedented situation isn't just that William has taken over the daily grind, but how the British public has completely and blindly accepted it without a second thought. It is as if everyone collectively agreed overnight that William is the rightful active leader right now, rendering the actual constitutional timeline completely irrelevant in the eyes of the public. The transition has been so incredibly smooth, so perfectly insidious, that we barely even noticed King Charles becoming more of a ceremonial background figurehead, while William acts as the active, aggressive commander-in-chief of the firm. This seamless shift leads us directly to a crucial historical question that royal experts are already quietly debating behind the scenes. Will Charles eventually formally step down? While palace officials would obviously vehemently deny such a radical thing, the operational groundwork is undeniably being laid right in front of our eyes. If William is already doing all the heavy lifting, managing the daily crises, directing the global PR, and setting the long-term strategy for the next decade, the only thing missing is the actual physical crown on his head. And there is a tiny, fascinating detail in how William conducts his private strategy meetings that reveals absolutely everything you need to know about his modern mindset. According to royal insiders, William doesn't do polite small talk in these vital strategy sessions. He demands hard data, public sentiment analysis, and clear, actionable business plans. He is running the 1,000-year-old monarchy exactly like a Fortune 500 tech company in Silicon Valley, which is incredibly jarring for the older courtiers who are entirely used to the slow, polite, tea-sipping pace of the late Queen's historic era. This absolute clash of cultures within the palace walls is creating a massive generational divide that is threatening to boil over. The old guard desperately wants to protect the ancient mystique, while William relentlessly wants to optimize the public output. This ruthless modernization is exactly why he is succeeding right now, because he is aggressively stripping away the archaic nonsense that completely alienates younger generations of taxpayers. Yet, with all this unprecedented centralized control, there is one massive blind spot that William might be dangerously ignoring, and it could threaten to unravel his carefully constructed new empire. The more control he actively takes, the more the ultimate blame will fall squarely on him if something goes horribly wrong. He is absorbing all the institutional risk. In the past, the blame could be easily spread around the sprawling family, diffused among various departments, minor royals, and senior advisors. Now, the buck stops entirely with the Prince of Wales and nowhere else. If a major royal initiative fails, or if a highly publicized global tour falls completely flat, he cannot hide behind his father's reign or blame bad advice. This immense, crushing pressure must be absolutely exhausting on a daily basis. I cannot even begin to imagine waking up every single day knowing that the fate of a global institution relies entirely on my ability to not mess up a single public handshake or misword a brief charity speech. It is a level of suffocating scrutiny that would break most normal people, but William seems to strangely thrive on it. He has this steely determination, almost a hardened, unbreakable resolve, that he likely developed after watching the tragic media circus surrounding his mother and later the ongoing exhausting saga with his brother. He has clearly learned from the catastrophic mistakes of the past and is aggressively preempting any future public relations disasters before they can even materialize. For instance, if you look closely, notice how incredibly carefully curated his public interactions are now compared to just 5 years ago. There are absolutely no off-the-cuff remarks that can be twisted or misconstrued by the press. Everything is deliberate. Everything is heavily calculated. This intense curation brings us back to the incredible overarching mystery of the current royal dynamic that nobody can quite figure out. How long can this shadow monarchy actually last before something breaks? Charles is still the reigning king, and there will inevitably come a definitive moment when William's aggressive corporate modernization directly conflicts with a deeply held ancient tradition that Charles wants to fiercely protect. When that inevitable clash finally happens, and I absolutely guarantee it will happen sooner rather than later, who will actually win the power struggle? The official anointed monarch or the ambitious son who currently holds all the real operational power? It is a fascinating, unprecedented constitutional crisis waiting to happen just behind those closed palace doors. We are currently witnessing a completely unique moment in modern British history, effectively a dual kingship, where the historic title belongs to one man, but the true, absolute authority has been completely absorbed by another. And honestly, the most brilliant part of William's entire overarching strategy is that he has done it all with a polite, charming smile, never once appearing disrespectful, aggressive, or overly power-hungry to the general public. He has beautifully framed his total control as an act of pure duty, portraying himself as a loyal son, simply stepping up to help his ailing father during a difficult time. It is the absolute perfect PR spin, flawlessly masking what is essentially a total, permanent restructuring of the British establishment from the ground up. So, as we watch the royal family navigate the unpredictable rest of this year, do not pay attention to who sits on the throne during the glittering official ceremonies. Instead, pay very close attention to who is actively dictating the exclusive guest list, who is strictly managing the press access, and who is ultimately deciding which charities get the invaluable royal spotlight, because that is exactly where the real tangible power lies. And right now,
Prince William is holding all the winning cards, effectively turning the rest of the once powerful royal family into mere supporting actors in his own carefully directed, modern production. The chaotic days of the sprawling, unpredictable Windsor clan are officially and permanently over, firmly replaced by the new era of William's absolute, unyielding, and incredibly calculated control. And honestly, it is the most highly entertaining and deeply strategic royal maneuver we have seen in decades, proving once and for all that while the historic crown may be incredibly heavy, Prince William has absolutely no problem wearing it, even if it remains entirely invisible to the naked eye for now.